Hello, we're glad to have you join us. This is Platform. I'm Ruth Aguela. Security, they say, is everybody's business, and for every government, a top priority, because no nation can prosper when there is instability. President Bola Tinubu, on assumption of office, listed the principles that will guide his administration. He says, and I quote, to be partial and govern according to the Constitution and ensure the rule of law, to defend the nation from terror and from all forms of criminality. End of quote. The president's vision, according to him, is to see a more equitable and just society, which aligns with the 8 priority areas of his administration by reinforcing commitment to the betterment of the country. It has been, well, for Nigeria, it has been a battle of mixed grill of security challenges that has disrupted the lives of many Nigerians and slowed down economic growth and development. In order to safeguard the sovereignty and ensure the safety of citizens, strengthening the nation's security architecture calls for a collective approach, or action if you like. While federal government continues to do its bit, citizens equally have a role to play. If any government must succeed, it requires a holistic and multifaceted approach that encompasses effective governance. So as we count down to 1 year of Tinubu's administration, how has it fared in addressing security challenges across the country? You know, May 29 is around the corner. If we're putting a spotlight on the nation's efforts in security under Tinubu's watch. That's our focus on Platform today, and our guest is Brigadier General Sani Usman Kukasheka, retired, a security expert. Thank you very much for joining us, Brigadier General.
Thank you so much for having me on your program.
All right, so let's take you through his profile, which is part of the tradition on the program, so you get to know who our guest is much better. Brigadier General Sani Usman Kukasheka, retired MNI, is the Consultant Director of Corporate Affairs and Information Services at the Nigerian Army Resource Center. He voluntarily retired from the Nigerian Army in February 2019 as Director, Army Public Relations and Spokesman for the Nigerian Army. He holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in Mass Communication from Bayero University, Kano, and a master's degree in Media, Peace and Conflict Studies from the United Nations mandated University for Peace, San Jose, Costa Rica. He also attended the prestigious National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies in Kuru, Jos, as a member of the Senior Executive Course, Section 40, 2018. Now, while in the military, he served in various units and formations of the Nigerian Army and had 2 tours of duty on United Nations peacekeeping operations in Sierra Leone, Ethiopia, and Eritrea. He also held several command and staff appointments in various formations and units of the Directorate of Army Public Relations. He has attended several professional courses, seminars, and workshops, both locally and internationally. Brigadier General Kukasheka is a prolific writer and has published various articles. A fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations, member of the Governing Council of the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations, a fellow of the African Public Relations Association, fellow of the Nigerian Army Resource Center, as well as a fellow of the Institute of Organizational and Administrative Risk Management of Nigeria. He is also the National Publicity Secretary of the Alumni Association of the National Institute. And recently he was elected as the National Chairman of the DRC 1993 Association, among other bodies. Well done, Brigadier General, for an impressive profile there.
Thank you so much.
Okay, our panelist is one of our correspondents here, our defense correspondent actually, Ismail Musa. Ismail Musa, thank you for joining us on Platform. Today you're not on the field, he's always on field. Thank you for choosing to be part of Platform today.
It's my pleasure.
All right. Brigadier General Kukasheka, once again, thank you for coming on Platform. And of course, you know, May 29, we're counting down, the clock ticks to 1 year in office. And when this administration came on board, top on its agenda was security. It's always a top priority for any government that knows what he's doing. And if you want to give your assessment, you know, based on what has played out in the past 1 year, looking back from where we were before this administration came on board, what would it be?
Well, I think the starting point, actually, I could remember, you know, last year we are all trying by this time, we are thinking of setting an agenda for this government and thinking of priority areas in terms of security and other aspects of governance. But I think the two things that are manifestly clear, there is this commitment and sincerity of purpose, which is quite important, which is radical departure from the past, and that's manifested in the various appointments that, you know, in the security architecture over time. Then, of course, you see the renewed vigor in terms of collaborations, and one important litmus test. Agreed, it ought not to have happened, but when that unfortunate incident of Kuriga happened, you know, the whole machinery of government or a whole nation approach was employed. You know, there was decisive leadership. Unlike in the past, you remember what happened in 2014 when the Chibok girls were abducted. But now you have from the bottom, I mean from top bottom, everybody was involved, and it resulted into the successes recorded. Then apart from that also, there are, you know, particularly I would rather talk about the security forces, particularly the armed forces of Nigeria, in particular the Nigerian Air Force. You have seen the number of platforms now they have, and of course the Nigerian Navy and the Nigerian Army, and you have seen the impressive performance. But I think although it is not yet Uhuru, there is a clear sense of direction and commitment in dealing with security challenges. However, it is just, we are looking at it from the perspective of just the federal government, which is just one component of the Nigerian society. We have 3 tiers of government: the federal, state, and the local government system. And the local government system up to now is not working. They invariably exist just to issue indigenship and water fill. And bulk of the security challenges emanates from the local level. So these are the issues. But take or leave, there is commitment and sincerity of purpose, and so much has been achieved. And you can see clearly that there is determined effort to move towards a particular direction.
And while we think of moving forward as a nation, of course, we require a collective approach. So, Ismail, go ahead, please.
General SK, talking about appointments, particularly the service chiefs and head of security agencies, tell me, is there anything unique about the crops of heads of security agencies we're having this time around?
Yeah, I think I'm so glad that you are the one who is asking this question, being a veteran of yourself, that you have the nickname of GOC, even though without truths.
That's our own GOC, yeah.
Yes, I have had the privilege of working with him for quite a number of years, and I'm not surprised that he's asking the question. But I think he knows almost better than I do now, because he still remains as a defense correspondent, so he maintains constant tap on what is happening, you know, in the security sector, particularly in terms of this. So I think the appointment, particularly of the service chiefs, you know, it was hailed. Why? Because they come with great wealth of experience. When you look at all of them, the appointment, the health, their qualifications, and of course you can see over time the achievement thus recorded. So you can see, I made reference to the issue of sincerity or purpose. But beyond that, you know, the strategic direction by the President Commander-in-Chief, they have keyed in, and so much is being recorded. And particularly the renewed synergy, collaboration and cooperation among the, you know, the security architecture. In fact, I marvel at the fact that a whole, the Nigerian Air Force now has even detached 2 aircrafts to a formation, which has never happened, is unprecedented. And that is what we are looking for. You know, apart from coordination and collaboration, I mean, cooperation and collaboration among the security architectures, we need to galvanize the Nigerian society to support these people, because the service chiefs, we all know them, they are people of impeccable character, and they are so determined, and they have proven their metals within the last 1 year. So they have been on commanding the various services. So, but there is limit to which they can perform. Not just the service team, but even the armed forces of Nigeria. There are other components of Nigerian society that need to support, so that people will understand that the issue of security is a collective responsibility, that each of these components is bringing on board what needs to be done so that we can be able to deal with it. Take, for instance, cooperation and collaboration with other, security architecture and coordination of the activities of these people. But most importantly, we are moving beyond a whole society approach to a whole nation approach. To what extent have we galvanized those components of Nigerian society to ensure that these security challenges are being dealt with? Take, for instance, the youth, the other professional groups. Take National Union of Transport Workers. What is the relationship? Then what is the relationship with traditional rulers? What is the relationship with youth? So these are the issues.
But following up to what you've just stated in terms of coordination, strategic coordination among these security operatives, how would you assess the synergy therein? Because if there's no synergy, we can succeed.
We were using the Kuriga, unfortunate incidents of Kuriga, as a litmus test in terms of cooperation and collaboration and synergy. And that, to me, is a template in the sense that almost all the components were brought on board. First and foremost, there was strategic directive from the President Commander-in-Chief, and we have seen it. Even the government was sympathetic and empathic about what happened. And of course, the efforts that were made towards, the rescue of those abducted. But by and large, it is just Kuriga, but we still need to also use that same template to ensure that all those abducted people are also rescued. So it's more or less like a work in progress, but I think there is far much better cooperation and collaboration and coordination of the activities. But of course, there is much to be done, especially in terms of coordinating the activities of, the component of security architecture. And by the component of security architecture, it does not mean those that bear arms or wear uniform. But every segment of the society has a role to play in dealing with security challenges, and right from the family. But then they need to be galvanized. When you are facing an existential threat, just like Nigeria is facing, all components of Nigerian society have to be mobilized and galvanized so that we will be on the same page. We shouldn't politicize security issues. So these are the issues. So sometimes so much has been done, you hardly see it because of the various destructive perspectives.
Okay, General SK, let's dissect the nation's security threats so that we'll be specific in talking about what was there before and what has been done. Now let's take the Southeast, for instance. In the past 1 year, what were the threats there and how is it now?
The Southeast, of course, is basically the secessionist agitation as manifested by the activities of the indigenous people of Biafra, which is Eastern Security Network. And of course, there are issues about communal clashes as well as hardest farmers clashes and what have you. Then we tend to neglect the issue of political toggery and what have you. So these are the issues. But that's also a threat. Yeah, it is also a threat. And of course, when you go on, the definition of security is now all encompassing in the sense that even a hungry man, he's insecure. Yes. So basically, let's look at it from the other perspective. Hardly a week will pass in the past. Will pass in those days without, one government infrastructure being attacked or the other. I'm talking about correctional services and so on. So these things have been...
It became a norm at some point.
Yeah, at a certain point. And, security forces were killed at random. And gradually these things are beginning to, reduce. They did not just reduce by chance. There were concerted efforts, and that effort need to be complemented.
And sustained, Brigadier General.
Exactly, complemented and sustained. And that is why I talked about component groups. Just recently, a very interesting story happened. You know, there was a time someone who has been in the southeast, you know, a herder, that has been in the southeast for over 30-something years, and he has over 500 cattle heads. But you have some misguided elements. They went and killed 80 cows. Now, after killing it, of course, peace was made and all the rest of it. The following day, when they went to, you know, intersect, before they reached, guess what happened to the cows? They were nowhere to be found. People, you know, have taken it and they have eaten the meat. So you have to look at the issues. You spread issues of criminality and genuine agitation and, of course, peaceful coexistence. This is someone that has, so what happened to other components of Nigerian society that have been interacting with such people? So the earlier we understand those people who do not mean well to Nigerian society and isolate them and treat them as such, the better for us. Because the average components of Nigerian society, they have peace loving. Each and every one of us, regardless of how old you are, you have had experience in the past that you can just wake up and go to anywhere you would like to. Sometimes you don't even know anybody, and people will receive it wholeheartedly and do that. What happened? So these are the kind of things that we have to look at, those value systems, and that is why other components of the Nigerian society have to come into play. Even though the government is doing its own security, but people have to be galvanized so that the criminals will not take advantage of vulnerabilities within this, this Nigerian society.
I was opportune to be among a team of journalists that were on a media tour to the southeast, and I was impressed to see the level of success countering the criminal sit-at-home order.
Sit-at-home and all the rest of them.
So what should be done to sustain such advocacy?
First and foremost, and that is one thing that we have to commend the government, there is more openness, and the more enlightened citizens are, it is much easier to govern them. But whereby there is dearth of information, everybody will be left at his own peril. You know, the gap, you will not even know what the government, sometimes they have the best of intentions, but they did not tell you, so you won't know. Sometimes even your support and cooperation is needed, you don't know, and you are eager to contribute. So going back to what you are saying, that is why there is a need for constructive engagement on the various components of Nigerian society. First and foremost, there are some fifth column, that specialize in propaganda. They try to demonize the security agencies, looking at them as army of occupation and all the rest. But thankfully, that one is in the past because their work speaks for itself, in the sense that they mean well, they are sacrificing their lives and comfort to ensure that the society live in peace. On the other hand, and if you look at it, the most enterprising, ethnic group, I think, is the Igbo.
I agree with you.
In fact, it is a common knowledge that if you go to any village, if there is no Igbo man or Igbo woman, you better pack your loads and leave. So now, how could someone tell them that they should sit at home, making them to lose millions of things simply because of propaganda, somebody who does not even live within this country? And it's a kind of utopian thing that by the time they come into government, Ruth has been appointed, will be given minister for petroleum resources, and Samaila will be made minister of defense. That's the kind of mindset they are telling people. So that means the leaders, the community leaders, the political class, the religious leaders ought to have come out and tell them the home truth. And this is the kind of thing that is happening now. People have started to open up, and they have seen that the military or the security forces are doing the best they could, and the society is now opening up, telling them the home truth, that you should listen. This thing, it is not the way it is being told to you. And the money they are bringing is just beaten. You can work hard, we can create an enabling environment for you to excel, so that we can be able to produce things that will be proud to purchase as Nigerian product. Look at Innocent Motors and what so many other things.
From that exit.
So it's just question of constructive engagement, and I'm so happy that this much is being done in that aspect, and we need to continue in that regard and sustain it.
Okay, so Brigadier General, from what you're saying, but the Southeast is not only that aspect that has, you know, one form of concern when we're talking security challenges. Other aspects, you know, across the country also has its own peculiar challenges. Now, if we have to break it down, from what you've just shared, based on the success being recorded in the Southeast, has to do with intelligence gathering, proactive intelligence gathering, because it's one thing to have this information and it's another thing to deploy its use. Now, for other sections across the country, what would you advise in terms of interstate collaboration or cooperation, if you like, because if you're making progress in a particular state and these criminals tend to leave that area to another state, you're creating another burden for another state. So how can state government, you know, work together to combat these criminalities?
Naturally, the issue about security, that is why we are talking about cooperation, collaboration among the components of Nigerian society. The components of Nigerian society.
Well, are you saying that?
Yes, I'm coming.
Okay.
You know, first we talked about among the security agencies, and I said that we have 3 tiers of government. Basically, 2 are working, what is more or less in comatose, so to speak, the local government system. But among the security agents, I mean, among the state government, take for instance, when you look at states like Kogi, that is bordering about 7 other states, and you know, forested areas and what have you. Naturally, and in fact, not even Kogi State, even the Federal Capital Territory, as it were, because of absence of other things like harmonized, you know, data, the intelligence, you can just commit an offense from in Gwagwalada. All you need to do is just to park. You don't even need to go far. You just go to Kubwa.
Or even Kuje.
Yeah. So you can understand. So basically, and that is why it is very, very important that the state government have to collaborate with each other, particularly when you have security challenges like banditry and what have you. Take, for instance, the northwestern parts of the country. You know, the activities happening or the criminalities happening in Zamfara State have corresponding effects on Katsina, Sokoto, Kaduna, and Kebbi states, and even beyond. So without collaboration, even the security agencies sometimes, when they get timely and accurate information, the very moment, because of the menace of informants, the criminals will just move to the next place. Yeah. And remember, I could remember precisely when, in those years when the army came up with exercise Harbin Kunama, you know, to deal with the banditry. The next thing, there was propaganda that, in fact, the government has directed the military to eliminate a particular ethnic group. From Zamfara State, people were moving to the Plateau State. So if you do not cooperate with one another and be on the same page with each other, definitely you just be working in vain. And that is why even the military, when they are doing operation, when these people are on the offensive, you have some people who will just be blocking forces to, you know, prevent the criminal elements from escaping from one end to another. So it is very important that the state governments or the state government should collaborate and cooperate with each other, because they are facing almost the same thing, the same challenges. But most importantly is to complement the federal government's effort, in the sense that we all know it, that the state governors are very powerful and they have a lot of, in fact, they own all the lands in the country. The president doesn't own. So to what extent are they using those resources for the betterment of the respective states or the citizens of their states, you know, they govern? So this is the question.
General SK, there's this regular notion that security is everyone's business. Yes, in reality, that's what it's supposed to be. But sometimes you see people viewing security as more of the military and security agencies' challenges. What do you think accounts for that?
Yeah, well, I think it has to, you have to go down the history, in the sense that Nigeria has been experiencing military, you know, regimes, you know, for 30-something years, but thankfully from 1999 to date. So we are used to those kind of knee-jerk approach to issues, not knowing that this is democracy, that each and every one of us has a role to play. And that is where we even have a problem, in the sense that some of the security challenges bordered on the issue of governance. Because there are certain instances that if you like, you can bring 1 million military or 1 million police. If the people do not agree to live in peace, coercion will not solve the problem. Therefore, and that is where the issue of the notion of security as everyone business come into play. We are used to a situation whereby when there are security challenges, all you have to do is drop policemen, drop military. No. Okay. Sometimes you need to talk to the people.
Brigadier General, we have to take a break.
Okay.
Just let's ponder on that thought. We'll be back shortly. Stay tuned.
What are we doing as a nation to first of all settle our teeming populace, especially the
NTA's political package with a third eye on the nation's political scene? I am Fisa Ogunfuyi. Welcome.
You have to be very careful giving space to people who are obviously sponsored to further the agenda of some other groups.
There's a lot of questions. A lot of questions in a closed door sessions. Some of these issues, some of the problems bedeviling of their.
In fact, between June 1st and July 17, 19-point-something billion has left the coffers of the NDDC.
I can say my constituency, they need everything because we don't have anything.
A method for digital literacy is a bot that you can use, you can interact to learn more about digital literacy.
Hello, it's our pleasure to have you join us on platform. I'm Ruth Aguwele.
What is the yardstick for measuring everybody's moral integrity? It's critical at this point in time.
How daunting has that been for the Institute in getting them abreast with all the legislative procedures?
The fact remains that one training workshop is not enough.
Thank you for staying tuned. The conversation is countdown to Tinubu's 1 year in office, and the spotlight is on security. Brigadier General, you were just sharing your thoughts or concerns on the interstate synergy, how states also have a role to play. You want to conclude that thought for us?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
in fact, his question was in respect of people tend to look at security as exclusive responsibility
while
of the
forgetting their role
military
as
and other security agencies. And I gave instances, but the truth is that we need to enlighten Nigerian society more. And I'm so happy. I think the Minister of Information and National Orientation is forthcoming with information, and he has a covenant with the people that he will not tell lies. So automatically, and that is what the Nigerian society wants. Whatever it is, if you carry them along and you inform them, they will understand. But I think up to now, we have not reached that point that we will be on the same page, because there is so much mistrust between the citizens and the government, and effort is being made to bridge that gap. So by the time you bridge the gap, so you can be able to understand, actually, whenever they say something, they mean it. And I could remember way back in 2014 when I was appointed director, I'm public relations director, you know, there was this kind of problem that Nigerian society, at the heat of the Boko Haram insurgency, they do not even know whom to believe. Is it the government or the terrorists? Because once in those days, if Shekau comes out, you know, through the social media, said that he was going to do something, definitely he will live up to his words. But sometimes you have had instances, military will suffer casualties and what have you, and it will be glossed over. But as time goes on, we started telling, you know, the public exactly what was going on, even when the military suffered casualty. And I could remember that time, okay, it was Muhammad Abdul that time. It was, you are not
is it the time that he was asking for your head?
No, well, of course, that was it. And that gave people sense of belonging. And I think he started with my head, I don't know, that cheap, 345,000 naira. So, but that is just by the way. So eventually people become more confident, and they realize that actually they have a role to play. And that is the kind of thing we need. And I was made to understand that the government is coming out with a citizen starter so that people will understand. And what we have in the national security strategy should be followed to the letter so that people will understand that they have a role to play. So it is not exclusive responsibility of the security agencies or the military. And most importantly, the issue of the state government, it is not everything that you call for the deployment of the, the coercive agents. Sometimes you need to interact with the community to find out what are these issues, what mechanisms, because in most instances, some of the security challenges lie within the community itself. But whereby you just decide to bring security forces, and there is a limit to which you can do that. And if you look at all the security challenges, particularly insurgency, bulk of it, if you are putting it on 100%, the military or the kinetic aspects is just negligible, at most 40%. So 60% had to be done by somebody else or the component of society. And that is the issue of constructive engagement, creating opportunities, for the various components, group of the Nigerian society, the traditional rulers, the youth, socio-economic, because all the security challenges are predicated on three things: the political atmosphere and socio-economic atmosphere. So you have to improve. So they had to go pari passu. If government is seen to be, improving the lot of the Nigerian society, definitely people will have greater sense of belonging.
Brigadier General, you're sharing a very strong information here, and in line with what Ismail Musa asked, that citizens' role, in engaging and, spreading that information to know that you also have a role to play. You have served as a public relations officer for the army, and you understand the power of information. Let's also look at the power of the media in all of this. We see fake news, misinformation online, which, concerns has been raised for regulation of content online, which we're yet to see that happen or become a reality. But also the traditional media, whatever we put out there shapes public attitude and opinion. And so the media also have a very strong role to play in terms of information sharing. Why I want us to talk a bit about this is because you can't underestimate the power of that information you're disseminating to the public. It can either make or mar a nation.
Certainly, you're quite right. And then if you are even going to talk about that, I think one other failing of the issue, we look of the society is the fact that if you look at especially the developed countries, we have media systems. And what is the media system in Nigeria? From independence, we have not really sat down to agree what sort of media system. Yes, libertarian and what have you. But the realities of the Nigerian society, or is it authoritarian? If you pick any of these developed nations, they have a particular system. But Nigeria is a kind of mixed. Had it been that we sat down and we have a philosophy, a guideline, a policy towards media, that could have been agreed. There's enough legislation in terms of labels and what have you. So all we need to do is look at them. But I think it is not issue of regulation. We have enough. But it's issue of understanding and making people and making the information available. Take, for instance, the 2012 or 2011, the Freedom of Information Act, came on board, which empowered not only even a Nigerian, even a foreigner. He can, from anywhere in the world, write to any of the ministry, department, and agencies to request for information. And that ministry, department, and agency is obligated within 7 days to give you an answer. You might not necessarily give the information that he or she wants, but you must justify also why. But the most important thing is you being responsible. Yes, agreed. We have had instances, sadly, unfortunately, when I was Director of Army Public Relations, a particular medium wrote to the Chief of Army Staff or the Nigerian Army requesting for a particular information. We obliged them. But unfortunately, they did not tell the world that how responsive the Army was, in disclosing that information. But again, coming to that issue, to what extent have we sensitized Nigerians to understand that they can request for information? But it did not even stop there, the act. It obligated these ministries, departments, and agencies to on quarterly basis be, sending returns to the office of the Attorney General in terms of information requests. But we are not following them up. So it's issue of strengthening information, enlightening the society. There is no doubt about the fact that the media has a critical role to play. And I must commend you for playing that role. But we have to make Nigerians to understand that we meant well. And you can only do that by being proactive with information.
Yeah, General SK, at present, the Defense Headquarters has more than 9 ongoing defense headquarters-led military operations are ongoing across the country. Now, you and I know the importance of platforms as force multipliers. How has the armed forces fared under this present administration in terms of acquisition of the needed platforms to prosecute ongoing operations?
I think so far so good, in the sense that I have given references in the years past. Air Force wouldn't have think of detaching one aircraft to the Nigerian Army, let alone to a division. And remember how many divisions the Army has and the level of commitment. Now, it is not just them, even the Navy, and just recently I've seen that the Defense Headquarters has taken, possession of certain, armored personnel carriers and other military hardwares. So I think so far so good. But I think the most important thing is looking at the fluidity of the security challenges. There is need for more. Take, for instance, the issue of drones beyond the surveillance, and I think we should upgrade that they need armed drones also. Yes, in fact, just recently, the Air Force, I can't remember the name of the aircraft, the two that were, inducted. They were so precise in the sense that even a bandit is on a motorcycle, they can strike. So we need more of such platform. But most importantly is to galvanize the Nigerian society so that each and everyone has a role to play, to understand he or she has a role to play in terms of information provision. And most importantly, again, to program the security agencies to be responsive. It is not just enough to give them information.
Considering the capital-intensive nature of these hardwares, what are measures in place to ensure local content involvement in the production of this equipment to cut capital fright?
Well, I think that I am not in government, so I won't know. But I know so far, take for instance, local industries, take for instance, the Defense Industries Corporation.
Yeah,
apart from the signing of the act, they have gone into production. The production line is up and doing, and I have seen visitation by the ministers of defense and the chief of defense staff by way of encouragement. And I learned that also the Minister of Defense, I think, is going out of his way to also sign memorandum of understanding with some of our tertiary institutions in terms of research. And I know for sure also the various research department, particularly the Defense Headquarters Group for Research and the Army's Transformation and Innovation and so on, and all the services, they have various research department to ensure that there is kind of local content in what we are doing. But we need the support of the people. We need the support of the government to ensure that these researches, this line of thinking come to fruition.
That is the aspect of,
exactly.
Deploying the use of locally products.
Yeah, look at even the Small Arms Control Center. Part of the proliferations of small arms in this country. Yes, we have porous borders, but there is a neglected indigenous local publication that is going on. In fact, some of the products of some of our technical colleges, they are producing quite a number of talented, graduates who end up into this kind of. So we need to harmonize it. We need to, identify these talents, and take them to the right places, and that is our society.
But Brigadier General, while we're thinking of ways to harness or utilize what we have and what we can do in terms of capacity as a nation. What about investment, collaboration from other parts of the world with the country? We see that ongoing subsequently, but strategically harmonizing those investments to the right use is very critical, Brigadier General, because if you're talking advanced air and ground surveillance, you need advanced technology. Certainly. To make all of that. Even if you're talking information sharing or intelligence gathering, you need technology to make it work. What aspect of investment, should we be looking at, from other parts?
Well, first and foremost, you think of, coordinating the various bodies. I could remember, I will give you an example. Take, for instance, when Nigeria was at its heydays, being the number 4 in the world as true contributing country, under the United Nations. And so much as it brings peace to the world, it also has economic benefits. In the sense that the United Nations pays as much as $10,000 per month per one armored personnel carrier deployed. And every month they will come and inspect to check if the braking system, the Wi-Fi, the lighting system, they pay back to the Nigerian government. And that will help getting revenue. But of course, Nigerian government cannot sustain, because there was a time when we had almost 10 battalions deployed across various parts of the world. So you cannot sustain their equipment. So there was this move to look for investors, particularly banks. Even though there is issue of propriety, funding armed forces, to bring the funds so that you can be able to equip the unit going out. And by the time the UN pays, you can be able to get back your money. So beyond that, there is need to look at investors, not necessarily even the government ministries, but first and foremost, coordination and harmonization. Using the UN peacekeeping operation as an example, it is not just enough that it is the Ministry of Finance or Ministry of Defense. Trade and industry, foreign affairs, because we have had instances we brought peace and stability in some of our neighboring countries, and some people came and took the glory away. Take, for instance, the mining, diamond mining rights in Sierra Leone and what have you. When I know that there were Nigerians that have investment, but because of the absence of this harmonization of relationship, people do not even know. In fact, even the contractors that serve the United Nations, we need to fund them. And that is why there is need to have a kind of clearing house for some of these issues, so that people will invest in the security architecture to see to what extent they can support government. So, and most importantly, again, beyond the local issue, then international collaboration and partnership.
A quick one, General. Talking about local issues, what happened to much celebrated Ezogu, the armored personnel carrier produced by our indigenous general?
Yeah, I think he's still.
I was expecting to see them in different units and formations.
It's still.
And that's just one aspect.
I don't know the extent to which the production of that APC has been sustained, but I know it has been deployed. And even yesterday we were discussing bulk of the thing that, including the wristwatch we are all having. If you go back into history, there are products, they say necessity is the mother of invention. Yeah. When you are faced with critical situations, such as war, even though it's undeclared, you tend to be more creative, more innovative, in the sense that we come out with just like the ESGU, but it is not even, there were so many inventions by the military. And not just General Ode's blasting device, there was one other one, and this blood transfusion, and so on and so forth. But to what extent? And that is one of the problems that we have in the Nigerian society, the issue of policy somersault or lack of continuity. And once we start certain things, we need to follow it through and keep on perfecting it till it reach the desired perfection that we want. Okay. And that should have been the fate of such things. I don't know, but I know that efforts are being made to encourage such local innovations and creativity so that it can save Nigeria much needed foreign, the foreign exchange, and in fact, it developed talents also because we have talented people.
What's the position of funding military equipments, considering the capital-intensive nature of most of those hardwares?
Brigadier General, would you say the funding is enough?
Well, you people are talking to me as if I'm in government. I'm the one who is the end user of the fund.
Based on your experience.
And your experience.
But the truth is that
I know there's been a long quest for diversification of...
Yes, the enveloping system and what have you, to a large extent it hampers because the security challenges are enormous and all the rest. In fact, when was it I was even discussing that the military was going out of its way to have these humanitarian activities. Now, precursor to some of their operational activities, you see them with medical outreach, building infrastructures and what have you. You begin to wonder, where do they get the fund?
We have to
so basically, that is the issue. So I think the issue of funding needs to be revisited, even though some people will tend to disagree. But the truth is that, again, you cannot have enough, because given the security challenges, it is better that we fund and equip our security agencies so that they can decisively deal with security challenges, so that we can live in peace, so that we have investment opportunities and peace and development. So I would rather encourage, so much as the government is doing the best it could, that they actually need more funding, because the security challenges are just too enormous. And I will give you an example. The training, take for instance, either Depot Nigerian Army or the school in One or even NTA. Suddenly, the RCA for a person, let's say, has been 1,000 naira. Now, with 1,000 naira, what can you buy?
And there's also the aspect of retraining to enhance capacity of this military personnel, and also incentives to encourage them to do much better, because we must continue to commend our troops out there and all our security operatives who are putting their lives daily on the line to ensure that we are protected, we're safe. But as we round off this conversation, Brigadier General, what kind of strategic approach you want to see, or what kind of new renewed vigor, talking about this administration, renewed hope agenda, what do you want to see going forward? Because security is an issue that we'll continue to talk about. We want to sleep with our eyes closed and not one eye closed. The military has its own challenges. Citizens have a role to play. What do you want to see going forward, Brigadier General?
Well, I think first and foremost, those aspects that were displayed when we had the challenge of Kuriga should be, perfected, so that we have more cooperation, more collaboration, a greater sense of direction, and synergy among the components, not just necessarily of the 3 tiers of government, but the components of Nigerian society. That is one issue. And secondly, training is most important. And apart from training, why we are in these security challenges is because we neglected our policing system over time. We neglected our policing system, and we have to, see how best we can reinvigorate or recalibrate our policing system so that it will be optimal. I mean, it lives up to expectations, in terms of number, in terms of equipment, in terms of training, so that they can be able to perform them. Yes, of course, they are all encompassing. Okay. Well, in the military parlance, we talk about welfare. Welfare, because they said an average soldier march on his stomach. And of course, he did not even come from the sky. In case of unforeseen circumstances, what happened to his family? What are those facilities available to the widows and, orphans that are left behind? Or even if there are no widows, sometimes people, become incapacitated. Yeah. So these are the issues. So it's all encompassing. But most importantly, we have to encourage good governance that will ensure socio-economic well-being of an average Nigerian is improved so that he or she can see himself as part of the Nigerian state and willingly contribute, you know, not just to security, but to national development in what aspect his or her specialization is. Sometimes it might not even be to do things, but to refrain from doing things. But it starts from the family system. Take, for instance, you have a family of 3 or 4 or 5, when you don't even know where the next meal is coming. So how can you be able to control such children? I mean, how automatically your dignity has been dissipated. So these are the kind of things that we talked about. Security challenges are predicated on political and socio-economic atmosphere of the state. Okay. So the more we improve on it, and definitely we'll see the Nigerian society getting better, because they have corresponding impact on the security of state.
Brigadier General Sani Usman Kukasheka will leave the conversation there, but definitely not those proactive steps that needs to be taken. It's a continuous process. Thank you very much for your time. He's retired and he's a security expert.
Thank you so much.
We want to appreciate you for your contribution and enlightenment, you know, on security issues in the country as we count down to 1 year of the Tinubu's administration. Ismail Musa, our defense correspondent, thank you so much for your contributions on platform.
It's my pleasure.
Our GOC in the house. All right.
Without troops.
Without troops, okay. All right, we've been discussing the countdown to Tinubu's 1 year in office, and the spotlight has been on security, which of course you know you have a role, a very strategic role to play. There should be that coordination. You can't be tired of hearing when you see something, you say something, and now please do something about it. Make a step, you know, forward. That's Platform. I'm Ruth Aguela. Bye.